Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Welcome back once again to the Corner of Truth and Courage. You're listening to Fortress of Faith. This is Tom Wallace. Yesterday, I began talking to you about events going on in Britain. I want to return back to this. If you missed any of our broadcasts, you can always re-listen to them on our website, fortressoffaith.com. We're also on Spotify. We're also on YouTube. And we have hundreds and hundreds of shows that you can go through and information that we teach and talk about. All that's there. Thank you for those of you who do continue to support us on a monthly basis. We cannot do it without your help to put this on your radio station. And we encourage you also, if you would, to kindly leave us a donation. The British are rebelling. They're turning against their country because, or rather their government, because their government has turned against them. We've seen a systematic effort in Europe to breed multiculturalism into the country. Now, we're talking about that here on our radio station because what's going on in Europe and Britain should be a crystal ball for us to look ahead for our own nation if we continue following the foolishness that the Europeans have been trying to practice for 20, 30 years, and they're ahead of us in this game. And we are following them. We are trying to enact them, at least certain people in our country. If we follow that, we're going to meet the same end and the same conflict and problems that they're dealing with. And right now, it could be that Britain is on the brink of a civil war. Let me say that again. They may be at the threshold of a civil war where there's a rebellion and unrest that has been growing for some time. We saw it last summer after the Southport killings of Rita Bacana, who killed these girls and stabbed them in such a vicious way. An immigrant, even though he himself was nationally born, his parents were not, from Rwanda. And we're seeing crimes by immigrants here in America. And that's why Trump has become so popular amongst the conservatives to say, we're done with this foolishness. We don't want this anymore. And the British don't have a politician over there yet. Maybe Nigel Farage might be the man. But there's been a steady appetite in Europe for some time of this multiculturalism. And who was really behind it in Britain was Tony Blair. And even he admitted in a statement in 2006 in a speech on later reflections, Blair admitted that the immigration had caused trouble, quote unquote, trouble in Britain, particularly with integration. And he noted that the Muslim communities face the greater difficulties assimilating due to culture and religious differences. Others have had the courage to say so and admit it. Trevor Phillips, the former chair of Equality and Human Rights Commission over there in Britain, in 2016 on Channel 4 documentary, Phillips also admitted that integration into Britain is failing, and particularly for Muslim communities, leading to segregated societies. Of course, Nigel Farage has been speaking against this for quite some time. He's been a man with courage, and others like him, Peter Whittle and so on there in the UKIP party, who are standing up against that. We saw Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary for the Conservative Party, in 2003, in a speech to the American Enterprise Institute. She said, uncontrolled immigration, inadequate integration, and a misguided dogma of multiculturalism has proven a toxic combination for Europe over the last few decades. And again, she too pointed out that the Muslim communities face particular struggles of integration. But David Cameron, who was once the Prime Minister of Britain, made it very clear in the Munich speech he made in 2011 that Muslims feel rootless and struggle to integrate, and leading to radicalization in Britain. Well, what's been going on is that the British officials have admitted, we got a problem here. but they've really not done anything to stop it. And now we see the Labor government under Starnes, who's pretty much acting like Biden did, doing the same policies that Biden did here in America, opening the borders. Now, it's harder to get into England because they got to cross some water. They got to get across the English Channel. The French are glad to see all these immigrants that have poured into their country want to go to England. Why do they want to go to England? Why do they want to come to America? Why? Because of the benefits. The dole and the welfare system is going to provide what they want. That's why they come. That's why they come. They can have free housing, free healthcare, free education, and work jobs and send money back home. And the government will still continue to watch over them. And that's why they come. And Britain has been so laden down with that. And then, as we talked yesterday, the immigrants get to fly their flags, and no one speaks. The government doesn't take them down and prohibit them from doing so. Now the British saying, listen, if you're going to allow them to raise their flags on property and even public property, like in London and South the Tower Hamlets there in the east side of London, they've had Palestinian flags flying for over 6 months on public lampposts. That's illegal to even put a flag on those things like that without the government giving you a particular permit to do so. So the British are raising their flags, the British flag, the Union Jack, as an act of rebellion against the government allowing these other flags to be flown. And guess whose flags the government is cutting down? Not the immigrant flags. No. They're cutting down the British flags, the St. George Cross and the Union Jack. And we've seen so much two-tier things going on. Let me give you an example. And this is one of the problems when people don't speak up. And you see injustice going on, and you don't speak up, and it brings us back to Edmund Burke. All that's necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. The British police in Yorkshire looked the other way. They didn't speak up. They didn't act. They didn't do their duty as police. There were sex grooming gangs of Muslims who made thousands of white British girls victims of rape, sex crimes, being brought into these sexual orgies and all the stuff with Muslim men. And the British police knew about it in Yorkshire. It was going on for a period of many years, over a decade. Some people were trying to raise the issue. I mean, we've been trying to report on this for quite some time. But the authorities did nothing. And the reason why, finally, an investigation was done, and some of these people were brought to justice after a long, lengthy process. But it was found in an investigation that the authorities in the Yorkshire police did nothing, didn't want to do anything, because they were afraid. They were afraid of being labeled as Islamophobes. Oh, we didn't want to be named as, like we're racist against Muslims and Islam and all that. Even though these people were committing crimes of your own country, of their country, of their laws, their country's laws, and these immigrants were allowed to come in and not forced to assimilate, say, listen, hey, we welcome you as an immigrant, but you're in our land. And what you could do in Pakistan and India and Bangladesh and in your Muslim countries, what you were permitted to do there, you can't do this here. These are crimes here. But they looked the other way. And because good men did nothing, evil triumphed. We saw this system, it's not just there. We saw this in the Catholic Church. In America and around the world, the Catholics tried to cover up the sexual crimes, thousands and thousands of victims through this. And the denomination said, shh, let's keep this quiet. let's not expose it. This is going to be disastrous if this gets out. Well, boy, was it. The Boy Scouts of America covered up 12,000 victims. When you develop a culture of censorship, we're not going to speak up. We're not going to deal with this. This is too big. This is too, these people are important people. We can't embarrass them. We can't whatever. We've got to cover this up. And you start developing a atmosphere. We don't speak out. And whistleblowers are not welcome. Can't bring this to the attention. No, we need people with courage. Again, I remind you, Acts chapter 18, verse 9. Be not afraid, but speak, and hold not thy peace, for I am with thee. We need people with courage. We need people that will stand and speak truth and speak it with love, speak it with compassion, but nevertheless speak and stand, to take a stand. I've been saying for quite some time, one of America's problems is that the pulpits of America have been silent when they should have been bold. We have too many cowards with a backbone of pastors that have a backbone of a banana peel. They're cowards to speak up, even when wrong and sin goes on in their church. This is what Paul exhorted the people in Corinth. Hey, you got sexual sin going on. It's open. This needs to stop. Don't look the other way. This is this needs to be dealt with. Some people need to be churched, but when things like this goes on, it corrupts if people do not speak up and to take a stand. All that's necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So I want to encourage us here in America. And this is why we say to you when you come to our broadcast, thank you for joining us at the corner of truth and courage. It's one thing to have truth. It's one thing to know the truth and the truth will set you free. And we enjoy the truth. We're thankful for the truth. We're thankful that the gospel came to our address and we know righteousness and we know the way. But we've got to have the courage to speak out against it. I get calls from many of you in emails, and many of you are saying, thank you for having the courage to speak and say these things that need to be said. And I don't know how you do it. Well, I do it because God says that we need to stand for righteousness. Be not afraid, but speak, and hold not thy peace, for I am with thee. If we don't speak out now, and this is what I've been saying to the British, if you don't speak out now and take a stand, what's going to happen in 10 years when the immigrants and Muslims take more control and you're afraid now to speak out? What's going to happen if you don't speak out now and then you lose more and more control and the ways of righteousness, the ways of your nation and your laws that are being violated? If you don't speak up now, how's it going to be in 10 years for you? And it's getting worse and worse. And finally, people are taking a stand. Thank you, and pray for them. I hope that they're able to regain what they've lost. May it be a lesson to us here in North America. We're going to have to stop here, but join us again tomorrow at the corner of truth and courage. God bless you.